night was as cold as a mortician's touch when I first set foot on the Stone Arch Bridge. The wind howled through the arches, carrying whispers of a tale that would chill me to the bone. I'm Cyrus Kade, freelance reporter, and I've seen my fair share of the bizarre and inexplicable. But nothing could have prepared me for what awaited me on this historic span across the Mississippi. It all started with rumors of a phantom haunting the bridge. Locals spoke in hushed tones of a spectral figure that appeared on foggy nights, warning people away from certain sections of the structure. At first, I dismissed it as urban legend, the kind of story that spreads faster than a prairie fire in this city. But then the disappearances began. 3 people vanished without a trace over the course of a month, all last seen on or near the Stone Arch Bridge. The police were baffled, and the city was on edge. That's when I decided to dig deeper, to uncover the truth behind these vanishings and the so-called Phantom of Stone Arch Bridge. My investigation led me to Sarah Thornton, a city engineer with a reputation for being as rigid and unyielding as the stone blocks that made up the bridge itself. She scoffed at my inquiries about ghostly apparitions, her eyes rolling behind thick-rimmed glasses. "Mr. Kade," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, "I deal in facts and figures, not fairy tales. This bridge has stood for over a century, and it'll stand for a century more. There's no phantom, just the overactive imaginations of bored Minneapolitans." But I could see something in her eyes, a flicker of doubt that betrayed her words. I pressed on, asking about recent inspections, any anomalies or structural concerns. She bristled at my questions, insisting that everything was up to code and perfectly safe. As I left her office, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah Thornton knew more than she was letting on. The puzzle pieces weren't fitting together, and I was determined to solve this mystery, even if it meant spending every night on that bridge until I came face to face with the phantom itself. Little did I know, that night would come sooner than I expected. It was just past midnight when I made my way onto the Stone Arch Bridge, armed with nothing but my trusty tape recorder and a thermos of coffee strong enough to wake the dead. The fog rolled in thick off the river, obscuring the Minneapolis skyline and wrapping the bridge in an ethereal shroud. I walked slowly, my footsteps echoing off the ancient stones. The air grew colder with each step, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing at attention. Something was watching me. I was sure of it. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night, causing me to nearly jump out of my skin. I spun around, heart pounding, only to see a young couple running towards me, terror etched on their faces. "We saw it," the woman gasped, clutching her boyfriend's arm. "The phantom. It tried to push us off the bridge." I tried to calm them down to get more details, but they were too shaken. They fled into the night, leaving me alone once again with the fog and the whispers of the wind. That's when I saw it. A figure, translucent and shimmering, materialized at the far end of the bridge. It was tall, with flowing robes that seemed to merge with the mist. I felt my breath catch in my throat as it began to move towards me, each step silent on the stone pathway. I wanted to run, every instinct screaming at me to flee, but my feet remained rooted to the spot. As the phantom drew closer, I could make out more details: the hollow eyes, the gaunt face, the spectral hands reaching out as if in warning. Just as I thought my heart might burst from my chest, the figure spoke, its voice a ghostly whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Beware," it intoned. "The bridge is not safe. Leave now, or suffer the consequences." Before I could respond, the phantom vanished, leaving me alone in the fog, my mind reeling from what I just witnessed. I spent the rest of the night in a daze, trying to make sense of what had happened. By dawn, I was no closer to understanding the truth, but I knew one thing for certain: I needed to talk to Sarah Thornton again. This time, when I barged into her office, she didn't seem surprised to see me. In fact, she looked as if she'd been expecting me, dark circles under her eyes betraying a sleepless night. "You've seen it, haven't you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, and she sighed, shoulders slumping as if a great weight had been lifted. "I thought I was going crazy," she confessed. "I've been seeing that thing for weeks now. Every time I inspect the bridge, it's there, trying to warn me away from certain sections." "Why didn't you say anything before?" I demanded. Sarah laughed bitterly. And risk my career, my reputation? Who'd believe me? She had a point. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I'm not sure I would have believed it either. But there's more, she continued, her voice trembling. I've been running tests, secret inspections. The bridge, it's not as stable as we thought. There are weaknesses, hairline fractures that could lead to catastrophic failure under the right conditions. My blood ran cold as the implication set in. The disappearances. Sarah nodded grimly. I think they fell through the cracks, literally. But I can't prove it, and without proof, I can't justify shutting down one of the city's most iconic landmarks. It was a lot to take in. A phantom, trying to protect people from a crumbling bridge. It sounded like something out of a bad horror movie, but I'd seen too much to dismiss it outright. We need evidence, I said, my mind already racing with possibilities. Irrefutable proof that the bridge is unsafe. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. I have an idea, but it's dangerous. We'll need to go onto the bridge tonight, to the exact spots where the phantom has been seen. If my calculations are correct, we might be able to document the structural weaknesses. I knew it was risky, but what choice did we have? If we were right, lives were at stake. We agreed to meet at midnight, when the bridge would be deserted. The hours crawled by as I prepared for what might be the most dangerous night of my life. I checked and rechecked my equipment, camera, voice recorder, notepad, anything that might help us gather the evidence we needed. As the clock struck 12, I found myself once again standing at the entrance to the Stone Arch Bridge. Sarah was already there, her face pale in the moonlight, clutching a bag of sophisticated-looking instruments. Ready? She asked, her voice quavering slightly. I nodded, and together we stepped onto the bridge, the fog swirling around our ankles like ghostly tendrils trying to hold us back. We moved slowly, Sarah stopping every few yards to take measurements and readings. The night was eerily quiet, the only sounds the soft beeping of her instruments and our own ragged breathing. We were about halfway across when it happened. A low rumble, like distant thunder, vibrated through the stones beneath our feet. Sarah's eyes widened in alarm. We need to move, she hissed. Now. We broke into a run, but it was too late. With a sickening crack, the stones beneath us began to shift and separate. I felt the ground disappear from under my feet, and for one heart-stopping moment, I was falling, the dark waters of the Mississippi rushing up to meet me. Then, impossibly, I felt something grab me, something cold and insubstantial, yet strong enough to halt my descent. I looked up to see the phantom, its ethereal form straining as it pulled me back onto solid ground. Sarah was there too, held aloft by another spectral figure. As we were set down safely, I could see more phantoms materializing around us, their hollow eyes filled with an ancient sadness. They're the ones who fell, Sarah whispered, her voice filled with awe and horror. They've been trying to prevent others from sharing their fate. As if in response to her words, the phantoms began to fade, their task complete. But before they disappeared entirely, I saw gratitude in their eyes, gratitude that finally someone had listened to their warnings. The sound of sirens filled the air as emergency services responded to the partial collapse. Sarah and I looked at each other, knowing that our night's adventure had provided all the evidence we needed to close the bridge and begin critical repairs. As dawn broke over Minneapolis, casting a golden light over the Mississippi, I couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and melancholy. The mystery of the Phantom of Stone Arch Bridge was solved, but at what cost? How many had lost their lives before the truth came to light? I've seen a lot in my years as a reporter, but nothing quite like this. It's a reminder that sometimes the real horrors aren't the ghosts and goblins of our imaginations, but the very real dangers that lurk in the world around us, hidden in plain sight. As for the Stone Arch Bridge, it stands now as a testament to both human ingenuity and human fallibility. The repairs are underway, with Sarah Thornton leading the charge to make it safer than ever before. And on foggy nights, if you listen closely, you might still hear the whispers of those spectral guardians, forever watchful, forever protecting. But for me, Cyrus Kade, this case is closed. I've stared into the abyss and seen the faces of those trapped between worlds. It's an experience that will haunt me for the rest of my days, a reminder that there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy. As I sit here typing up my report in the dim light of my office, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. Perhaps it's just paranoia, the lingering effects of my brush with the supernatural. Or perhaps, no, I won't go down that road. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. But I can't help but wonder, as I look out my window at the city skyline, how many other secrets are hidden in the structures we take for granted every day? How many other phantoms are out there, trying desperately to warn us of dangers we're too blind or too stubborn to see? It's a chilling thought, one that makes me question everything I thought I knew about the world. And isn't that the real horror? Not the jump scares or the ghostly apparitions, but the realization that the ground beneath our feet might not be as solid as we believe. I've always prided myself on being a skeptic, on seeking out rational explanations for the seemingly inexplicable. But after what I've seen on the Stone Arch Bridge, I'm not so sure anymore. There are forces at work in this world that defy explanation, that challenge our understanding of what's possible. And yet, even as I grapple with these existential questions, I can't help but feel a sense of purpose. If my experience has taught me anything, it's that there are stories out there that need to be told, truths that need to be uncovered, no matter how unbelievable they might seem. So I'll keep digging, keep asking questions, keep shining a light into the dark corners of our world. Because who knows? The next story might be even more incredible, even more terrifying than the Phantom of Stone Arch Bridge. As I finish typing these words, I hear a sound that makes my blood run cold. The soft, unmistakable whisper of spectral robes brushing against the floor behind me. Slowly, heart pounding, I turn in my chair, half expecting to see those hollow eyes staring back at me. But there's nothing there. Just the shadows of my office and the faint reflection of my own pale face in the window. Or is there? For just a moment, I could swear I see a flicker of movement. A translucent figure beckoning me towards some new mystery, some new horror waiting to be uncovered. And despite the fear coursing through my veins, I find myself reaching for my coat and hat. Because that's who I am. That's what I do. I'm Cyrus Kade, and I chase the stories that others are too afraid to touch. So if you're out there reading this, remember, the world is stranger and more dangerous than you could ever imagine. Keep your eyes open, your wits about you, and maybe, just maybe, you'll spot the phantoms trying to warn you before it's too late. As for me, I've got a new lead to follow, a new mystery to solve. The night is young, the city is full of secrets, and somewhere out there, another story is waiting to be told. Just don't be surprised if you see my byline attached to another tale of the unexplained in the near future. After all, in a world where bridge-haunting phantoms can be heroes, anything is possible. Stay tuned. Dear readers, the truth is out there, and Cyrus Kade is on the case.
Thanks for joining us in the shadows tonight. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories every week. Have you got a story of your own? Share it in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And remember, the darkness holds many secrets. Are you brave enough to uncover them? Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked. Sweet nightmares.